The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Welcome back to Oh, Mr. Sheffield, a show about a nanny. Not just any nanny, the nanny. That's right. Nanny Fran. Fran Drescher, star of the hit sitcom from the 90s, The Nanny. And I am Sean DiPasquale here with
Tori Sheffield. And
Bringing It Back.
I didn't know that you channeled Chris Farley so well when you wanted to. Welcome everybody.
Welcome. How is your week? We'll listen. Go on. Oh, that's a shame. Sorry to hear about him. Anyway,
But it was for the best, and when one door closes, a window opens.
Another one, yes, for you to jump out of. Just kidding. The Dope Diamond. We're here this week talking about season 3, episode 3, The Dope Diamond. This episode was directed by Dorothy Lyman. Mm-hmm. She's back and better than ever. And it was written by Diane Wilk, who's we're all very familiar with.
Yes, and this is the episode where Fran gets engaged to a con artist by accident. It's not her intention. Yeah, and it causes her and her mother to have to face some pretty toxic family dynamics.
Yes. Yeah, it really becomes an episode about like her problems with her mom and her mom's problems with her mom, like generational baggage.
Yeah.
And the dissonance.
Yeah. And the Dope Diamond is a play on the Hope Diamond, which is a very, very famous diamond.
It's like the world's biggest diamond.
It's I don't know if it's the world's biggest diamond, but maybe it is. It's 45.52 carat, and it's blue in color due to trace amounts of boron. It's currently in the Smithsonian, so I've seen it a couple times, but
boron. Are you sure that's not boring?
What if I just go? You hear me sobbing for a few. Excuse me. I need to go drink some water.
You just immediately end the call.
I actually cut out the fact that it was extracted in the 17th century from the Kolor mine in Guntur, India. So now you're only
Kolor, more like a boar.
But so in this episode, we right off the bat established that Fran has been dating an English Jewish doctor, which I feel like is hard to find.
I felt it was very fake as soon as they said he was also Jewish. I was like, he's not Jewish.
I mean, there are definitely Jewish people in England.
There's no English Jewish people. Don't be ridiculous.
I know, we just never hear about them.
We never hear about them.
In The Crown or in Upstairs, Downstairs, or any of the things that, we get our English news from.
Yeah. How come there's no English Jewish people on Downton Abbey?
How come there's no Jewish English people in the royal family?
Well, I can tell you why. I can tell you why, but they'll have me killed.
So she's dating this English doctor who she met at, quote, the Hadassah Hoedown.
The Hadassah Hoedown. I love it.
I do too. And as expected, Mr. Sheffield is clearly jealous. So, literally Fran's coming down the stairs with Sylvia in the opening scene. And Fran is trying to hike her skirt a little lower on her knee, and Sylvia is trying to hike it up higher on her thigh to prepare for this date with this man named Jules.
Yeah.
And
do we need to define what Hadassah is?
I actually do later, but we can do it now. No, let's do it now because we have some Yiddish too to go over. But okay. Hadassah it's the real name of Queen Esther.
Yes.
Which this is so Jewy, but if you know the story of Purim, which is a Jewish holiday, it is the story and the celebration of, as usual, when the Jews overcame persecution. And it starts off
another parable of the Jews almost being murdered and barely surviving.
Yes. And in this, basically there's this young Jewish woman named Hadassah, and she ends up like the king, who is not Jewish, he ends up falling in love with her. And so she changes her name to hide her Jewish identity, and she marries into the royal family, and she becomes Esther. And she basically uses sort of her wits and her ability to convince, to save the Jewish people from this guy in the court who wants to basically kill all the Jews named Haman. And one thing that you do if you ever went to temple for this is it's like the only fun holiday for kids.
Only fun holiday for kids.
Because, it's kind of like Halloween, like you dress up in costumes and you dress up as the different people from the story. And they tell the story during the in synagogue. And every time they say the name Haman, you get to use these noisemakers to be like, boo, boo. And it's truly, truly the only fun, thing you do in temple.
Yes.
But anyway, so that's Hadassah. And the name is often used, for women-centered charities in Israel, things like that. But so this was the Hadassah hoedown. We then have this great scene where Mr. Sheffield is in his office with Cece and Niles, and Fran stops by with this guy, Jules, and Cece literally starts to sob because he's so gorgeous.
Another soap opera actor too. I forget this actor's name, but he was another. I looked him up and I was like, oh, it's another dude who's from like daytime soaps.
He totally has that vibe. I can so see him being like a doctor on a soap opera.
Right?
Yes. Perfect.
That's what made me look him up, is I was like, who is this guy? Because he's like almost Pierce Brosnan-esque.
It was like Pierce Brosnan and Guy Pearce if they had a baby. Yeah.
And then I looked and it was like 400 episodes of General's Hospital as Duke Lavery.
Also, I really like that you called it General's Hospital, as if it's a wartime epic.
Is that not what the show's about?
Still a soap opera.
Is that not what it is?
It's General's Hospital.
Is it not a Civil War era set TV show soap opera? He was also on Bold and the Beautiful and Days of Our Lives. I mean, he's like All My Children as Dr. Greg Madden. So you nailed it. He did play a doctor on a soap opera.
Yes, very. All makes sense. And he stops in and he says that, he's taking Fran to a matinee, and Mr. Sheffield, again, very jealous, instantly gets into basically like a dick swinging contest, but about their theater connections, which is very funny because he's like, Jules is like, yes, like I got us, really good seats. I know the director. And then Mr. Sheffield's like, I know the writer. And he's like, I know the blah, blah, blah. And like, they keep going back and forth. And she's like, stop it. And that evening, Sylvia is at the mansion waiting. She's just waiting around because she wants to hear how Fran's date went. And so that means that in practice,
which has to be so annoying for the Sheffield.
I know, but like,
could you imagine if you hired a nanny and her mom for some reason was just at your house all the time? You'd be like, "What's happening?"
And that's what's so funny, though, is the fact that they're now like so intimately enmeshed in the Drescher in the Fine family, because she's literally she won't sit down at the dining room table for dinner, even though they keep saying, please sit down, join us. And she goes, no, I couldn't eat. I'm not even hungry. As she's like literally picking things off people's plates and shoving it in her mouth. And the best moment, she looks at little Gracie and there's a baked potato on her plate and she goes, such a big potato for such a little girl. And she shoves her fork in it. And then tilts her wrist up because then she goes, look at the time. So that now she has expertly like taken the entire potato off of the plate in one swoop. And then she goes, I'll be in the kitchen. I'm going to need some meat to wash this down. So she walks off with an entire potato on her fork. Very funny.
Gracie's potato.
And then Mr. Sheffield, he very smugly says that, none of us should get too attached to this Jules because we all know Miss Fine's relationships always ends in disaster. At which point Fran comes running in yelling that she goes, he asked me to marry him.
Which for a split second, I thought we were getting a best of episode, like a flashback episode. When he was like, we know Fran's things always end in disaster. For a split second, I was like, oh no, please don't cut to like every previous date Fran's been on ending in disaster. Cause I don't want a clip show, but it wasn't a clip show. Thank God.
Well, and I don't think they do these in sitcoms anymore, but for anyone who doesn't know, there used to be these episodes, usually later seasons of a sitcom.
Yes, to save money. They're their budget thing.
They were just like, we're out of ideas. We just need a break for a week. Let's do an episode where it literally starts off with a character being like, because it's not as if you've ever lost your temper and then you just cut to all the previous scenes where that has happened. And that's literally the whole episode.
This was such a so heavily practiced that Simpsons in like their third season, I think, did an episode called "So It's Come to This," a Simpsons clip show where they just remember stuff that happened in previous episodes. It was parodyable how often this happened in sitcoms, and I truly do think, I don't even think it was an out of ideas thing. I really think it was like this was how you saved money, is like, oh, we only need one set and 3 actors this week, and then we don't even need them there for the full week of filming, because it's what are you shooting? You're shooting just like 3 little in between moments to sort of clip all the clips together.
Yeah, it was so disappointing when that was the episode.
Yeah, but the way he framed the line, I was like, oh no.
And then, so Fran comes running in and goes, he asks me to marry him. And then she goes, I'm so excited, I couldn't even eat. And then she looks at Gracie's plate and goes, such a big corn for such a little girl. And she grabs the corn off of Gracie's plate, starts eating it. And she sits down and she literally starts to explain that, like, yes, he asked me to marry him, but I didn't say yes. And what she doesn't know is that Sylvia has walked back into the dining room and is behind her. And as soon as Sylvia hears, but I didn't say yes, she passes out, then regains consciousness and starts clawing at Fran's ankles, then starts chasing her around the dining room.
With the corn.
And then chases her into the kitchen and then, you know, they kind of like reach this detente, and Sylvia's just like, I just don't understand. Like, why would you say no to this? Like, she's like, I don't mean to be cruel, but you're a glorified cleaning girl. Like, could have been your last chance. And she basically convinces Fran. And because Fran's like, I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. I just said I needed to think. And then Sylvia's like, and have you thought about it? And Fran's like, yes, and I'm going to say yes. So they hug just as Mr. Sheffield comes in. And he starts going, Miss Fine, you know, I was thinking it's so good that you didn't say yes. I think you're much too sensible a girl to rush into. And then before he can even finish the sentence, he yelps in pain. And then Sylvia holds up a giant fork and goes, oh, I'm sorry. Did this fork accidentally puncture your tuchus? So she's clearly like, shut up. Okay, so we established Fran is engaged to this debonair Jules character. So we cut to this very fancy sort of like Park Avenue jewelry store. And he's brought her there.
So I thought it was funny that I named him Jules and he ends up being a jewel thief.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I thought that was really funny. Like, once I realized what the episode was, I was like, they called him Jules.
Well, especially because, you know, when Fran first is coming down the stairs and is like, you know, Jules isn't even here yet. I was thinking a girl was coming over, and I didn't I was surprised. I'm like, oh no, it's a guy and it's a date, but it's an ambiguous name.
I was thinking it was Jules from Pulp Fiction, Samuel L. Jackson's character from Pulp Fiction. I was like, oh my God, what a crossover.
I was thinking it was Jules from Euphoria, and I was like, wow.
So progressive. Yeah. That's funny because I thought it was Jules Verne, and I was like, oh my God, time travel.
Oh God, any other Jules?
I was racking my brain just now. But I ran out. I hit empty at Jules Verne. So he takes her to a jewelry store, Jules, and they're looking around for a ring. And there's a funny line where she's like, I don't want anything too ostentatious or big. And then she's like, what is that? And the lady goes, that's a glass ashtray.
Yes. It's a crystal ashtray. She's like, but she's not saying it like, I don't want anything like that. It's the opposite. She's like, I don't want anything too big or ostentatious. You know, maybe something more like that. And then it's a crystal ashtray.
That I might argue, like, is a line where you're like, is she too dumb to know what a ring looks like?
No. The line, it's just truly that she's claiming she doesn't want anything ostentatious, and then the thing she likes best is so large.
Ashtray.
It's just the biggest, shiniest thing possible that would look absurd on an actual human finger. But so then she, realizes that, and then she kind of like her eyes get caught on this other ring that's, huge as well. And the sales girl, who does a lot with this little role.
Yeah, she does.
She's like, oh, this one. She goes, this one's $50,000. And she takes it out of the case. And Jules he seems very unimpressed by it. And he's like, I don't know. It just doesn't sparkle. And
he goes, it's a little cloudy. And she's like, what? Like, she really does act the hell out of this. She looks very like offended and confused.
And like
she gets
pained.
Defensive. Yeah. And she's like, it's not. It's like, this is it's a 5-carat diamond and da-da-da-da. You know, she's like, it sparkles in the sunlight.
Yes. And she even says to him, she's like, go take it out. She's like, go, you don't.
No, he says it. She says it sparkles in the sunlight. And he goes, yeah. He's like, well, maybe I should take it outside and see it. And he's like, I'll leave her as collateral. And he kind of like gives Fran like a little nudge. And then he walks out the door. And
so
Fran
ostensibly.
To go hold it up in the sun, basically. And then Fran is talking to the lady. And they're talking, and then the sales girl just goes, "Hey, wait!"
Yeah, she goes, "Where is your fiance?"
Yeah,
and that literally like security descends, and they grab Fran, and they're like, "Don't let her get away!" And they're like, "Call the police!" And she goes, "He's a doctor. He doesn't need the money. Hillary's health plan didn't go through," which is funny because hey. She does know about Hillary's health plan, which insinuates she knows something about what goes on in the news. And for anybody, for some of our younger listeners, before Obamacare.
Before Obamacare. Yeah. That's what I was just about to say.
There was, famously in Bill Clinton's first term, Hillary Clinton.
Clinton Care.
Was it? No, it wasn't. But so she wanted to make her platform universal health care. And this bill went, she compiled this potential bill that was, very, very complicated and really, really like probably of no fault to her own, but to the fault of our healthcare system. And it didn't go through for a lot of reasons. And it was kind of considered this failed endeavor and this failed thing that Hillary Clinton, like the first lady, had tried. And so when Obama was trying to get it passed, there was lots and lots of references to like, well, we already tried this and we remember what a disaster it was back then and blah, blah, blah. So that was what this was.
Yeah. Well, and the joke was that the healthcare industry would have taken such a hit from this that like doctors wouldn't have been able to be rich anymore. We cut back to the store like a little bit later.
Yes, it's Fran talking to a detective because clearly that was like the commercial break. It's Fran gets abandoned and this guy has like, totally conned her. So we cut back to the store. Fran's talking to a detective and the detective reveals that this is Jules Kimball, and he's a known con artist who, quote, usually preys on women over 30. And then he goes, single, desperate. So Fran was like a target for this guy, like someone who would clearly say yes, could clearly, then plausibly get him into a high-end jewelry store and then give him opportunity to steal, which also I have never been in a situation where I would know if this is something that could happen. Would they ever let you walk even close to the door?
Never in a million billion years would that happen. And the fact that there is established security to the store, I feel like the security would have been like, no. And if you were like somehow really rich and could insist on it, I feel like security would walk outside with you. They wouldn't just let you walk out with a ring and be like, hey, look at this.
I remember like 15 years ago when my cousin's husband picked out a ring, you had to go like into a back room with one other person and they would like show you one by one.
Yeah, it's silly. Although, did you catch the reference to The Fugitive? Did you catch that joke?
I'm not sure. What was it?
He goes, his name is Jules Kimball and blah, blah, blah. And now we have no idea where she is. And Fran goes, Dr. Kimball, a fugitive? What are the odds? And that's a direct, because The Fugitive was a show about a doctor who was framed for murdering his wife and he did it. And his name was Dr. Richard Kimball.
Wait, it was a show? I thought it was a movie with Harrison Ford.
It was, which was based on a TV show.
I didn't know. I just knew the movie with Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones.
Well, there you go. That was based on a show.
Look, Bumble knows you're exhausted by dating. All the must not take yourself too seriously and 6'1" since that matters. And what do I even say other than, hey? Well, that's why they're introducing an all-new Bumble with exciting features to make compatibility easier, starting the chat better, and dating safer. They've changed, so you don't have to. Download the new Bumble now.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Yep.
Then we cut back to the Sheffield mansion.
Yes.
Fran is miserable because for obvious reasons.
Mortified. Like you can tell she feels really dumb. Like,
yes. And Sylvia shows up at first seemingly to console her, but it just instantly devolves in a fight where basically Fran's like, this is all your fault. Like you have been pressuring me to be married and to get married like for as long as I can remember. So like, of course I was going to fall victim to something like this. And Sylvia's like, how dare you blame me for like you being stupid and all this stuff. And Gracie comes down the stairs. And this is the first time we've really heard anything from Gracie in a number of episodes.
Yes.
And
first line she's had for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she goes, I could hear you. Oh no, wait, hold on.
What?
I just accidentally pressed play. Hold on.
What?
I pressed play on the episode. I didn't know my headphones could do that. I touched my head. Okay. So Gracie comes down the stairs and she is like, I could hear you arguing and I recommend that you two go to therapy together. Yeah. And they sit down next to her. She's literally sitting between them. And Sylvia goes, oh, I don't know. I'm just not the type of person who can sit on a couch and scream and cry about how miserable I am. And Fran goes, oh, please put a lean cuisine on your lap and you're at home. Which is so true. It is so true.
So true. Yes.
Oh, God. Some of the most miserable people I know who only want to tell you about their problems also insist that they could never whine at therapy.
Yep.
But, they actually end up taking little wise Gracie's advice. And then we have this fantastic scene where we see there's
a joke there where Gracie's like, she's like, you could see this doctor or this doctor is really good at it. She lists like 10 therapists. Yes. And you're like, oh, the only character trait they have for Gracie is that she sees therapists.
Yeah, well, she's literally like, you could see Dr. Milkins, though, he's probably a little too cerebral. But then she has like a Rolodex of therapists. So then we have.
But they agree to go. They agree to go to therapy because then we cut to them in therapy.
Yes. Well, first you just see there's this great reveal in this episode because you see that it's the therapist and she says, so like what brought you ladies here? And we cut to Fran and she goes, well, I came because my mother has an obsession with me getting married. And then the camera pans to the right to Sylvia and she goes, I came because my daughter has a delusion that I have an obsession. And then we pan to the right again and we get Yetta, which made me so happy. And she goes, I came because they brought me and I don't know how to get home from here. And she has those glasses, those Coke bottle glasses that make her eyes look gigantic.
And she's smoking a cigarette.
They crack me up every single time.
Every time, yeah.
And the thing is they end up talking it out and they actually get a resolution where, Sylvia's like, when I talk about wanting you to have these things like a family and all that, it's because I want you to be happy. Yeah. And then Fran starts to cry and she's like, I know, but like, I think that I can have a meaningful life even if that never does happen for me. And they embrace and, they have their reconciliation throughout all this. And then we have I thought was a great last button or scene of this episode where we go back to the mansion. Fran comes home and, Mr. Sheffield asks her how the session went. And she's like, everything got worked out. And she's like, but listen to this. The therapist thinks I'm subconsciously avoiding a relationship and like laughs. And then Mr. Sheffield's like, he laughs and he's like, Gracie's therapist says the same thing about me. And then they're both like, I mean, if either of us found someone who made us laugh, who we could spend all our time with, who we were attracted to, we'd never let them go. And literally as they're about to walk away from each other, Mr. Sheffield's cufflink is stuck on Fran's hair. And she's like, oh, wait. hold on, we're stuck on each other. and it's a freeze frame, which I thought was great.
I thought it was super cute.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think some of the stuff between Fran and her mom, like obviously a lot of it is like just pulled from like, this is what Jewish mothers are like to like their single daughters, but it also, some of it sounds like a conversation that like the show is having with executives demanding that Fran and Mr. Sheffield get married, where it's like, I can be a single woman who's happy and like in my 30s and it's okay, you know? And then the mom's like, no, nobody wants that.
Yeah, it does seem to have that very subconscious fuel to it,
right? Like it's like a defense, an active defense of what the show wants to be versus like what the studio wants the show, you know, or the network wants the show to become, which is like, get them married and like put them together already, you know?
Yeah. Though we could be reading way too much into it, because Fran and Peter Mark Jacobson's definitely liked that these were two people who were going to be oblivious to the fact that they're meant for each other for a very long time.
Yes.
So
yeah, but Sylvia in this scenario, Sylvia becomes like the network, you know, going like, no, you have to get married. You're useless if you're not married.
Yeah.
You know?
Favorite parts or moments.
Oh, wait, is it segments time?
Segments.
Oh, I didn't even know. Segments. And now, segments.
So, segments.
Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments.
We can move on to our segments.
And now, segments.
Segments with Sean and Tori. So, I laughed out loud when Sylvia's holding an entire potato on the fork and goes, I'll be in the kitchen. I need a meat to wash this down.
I also liked Mr. Sheffield and Fran are talking after the ring gets stolen, and he's like, "Oh, Miss Fi, this wasn't the stupidest thing you've ever done." And she goes, "Yeah, the stupidest thing I ever did was Windex your Monet, or should I say your Mon?"
Yes, I have that too. And like
she smudged the ET off Monet.
Basically around that same part of the episode, Mr. Sheffield claims that he knew they shouldn't have trusted Jules, and he's like, because I can spot a con from a mile away. And Fran goes, this from a man who paid me time and a half to work on Hebrew National Day. This is fantastic.
Yep.
I really liked earlier in the episode, Fran is blaming Sylvia for the whole situation. And Mr. Sheffield goes, I'm sure your mother meant well. And Niles goes, they always do. Like when they discourage you from pursuing a singing career so you can follow in your father's footsteps as a subservient slave. And then there's like a beat and he looks at Mr. Sheffield and he goes, and loving every minute of it, sir.
That was mine. I had that one highlighted too. I love that line. I just like the reveal that like, we already know Niles has an excellent singing voice, but now we've gotten like confirmation that like he wanted to pursue that and his mother would not let him. Yeah.
And then there was a line in the therapy session, which was just also so true to life. Sylvia goes, I just think there's a time when a child has to stop blaming their mother for everything that happens to them. And then she turns to Yetta and goes, this is all your fault.
Everything that Yetta says and does is hilarious. I can't even write them all down. Everything she does, every line she's given, every look, she's without question my favorite person.
Super, super funny. And it's always like unexpected when we get her sometimes. Like when an episode's not about Yetta being there, but she just pops up. You're always like, oh, amazing.
She also goes, at one point in therapy, Yetta says, she's like, don't bother her about getting married. She should get married when she wants to, not just because she got knocked up by the seltzer man. And then she's like I heard people do.
Like I heard people do.
And then she goes, Sylvia goes, my daughter says stop blaming me for everything. And she's like, it's your fault. And to her mom, Sylvia says to Yetta, it's your fault. And Yetta goes, me? And she goes, you're the one who kept pushing me to have children. They're nothing but heartache. And Yetta goes, that's right. Payback time.
Yep. God.
It was so good. She's so good.
It was such a delightful scene, and I did not expect the episode to kind of go there, and I was very happy. And then for listener comments, Love Francine wrote us and said, Sylvia's line where she tells Fran, "You're a glorified cleaning girl." Hilarious. Agreed. Susanna Varghese, who sent us a bunch of great stuff last week, she says, "I love that Fran is, quote, feeding into Cece stuffing her face. And it's not just Niles messing with her. We start seeing more of that. Because basically at one point, Fran's like, oh, yeah, because women deal with their sexual frustration by just eating. And then Cece, with a full mouth of sandwich, goes, "That's completely absurd." And then Fran literally hands her a bag of M&Ms and tells her she's going to get bonbons for her at the theater. And Cece goes, "Ooh." She also wrote, "Mr. Sheffield is a butt face at times." I think that's the perfect way to describe Mr. Sheffield when he's being absurd. A butt face. I love it.
He is.
She also says, "How many fine pieces of art does Mr. Sheffield have? Like Monet, Picasso?"
Their wealth is a weird, it's weirdly constantly in flux, where sometimes it seems like they have so much money that they never have to worry about some of the stuff that he worries about business wise. And then sometimes he's fretting over not being able to get a show together, and you're like, well, what does he even care about this? And also, why not just put your own if he's got 6 Monets, why is he the investors might not invest in my tiny play that costs under $1 million to fund? What? It's inconsistent.
Okay. My take on this, we've talked a little about this before, but I feel like we have even more clarity now. I think that, his father did not respect what he chose to do. And I think he has a big chip on his shoulder and really, really wants to be successful independently of the family.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I read him now.
That's why he pushes so hard for work stuff, even though he technically doesn't have to, because they're clearly billionaires.
Yes, but as we said before, if you really, really want something to work professionally, it still feels humiliating and it hurts your ego and it feels like a failure if it doesn't work out, even if your income is not riding on it.
That's true. I have a friend who doesn't depend on income at all, and every time he fails, it hurts him.
That's just karma, though, for him. I know you're talking.
Oh, man.
Yiddish.
Yeah.
Tuchus. It means your tushy, your bottom.
Yeah, tuchus. Mm-hmm. My grandma used to say, "I'll give you a pachin tuchus."
What's that?
That meant she was going to spank me. But she never did it. She would just threaten. She'd be like, "Do you want a pachin tuchus?" And I'd be like, "No."
No.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Where's that?
I don't. That's not till later I'll get into that.
No, this podcast is for people in their 30s who don't want to hear anything about, I was going to say children, but.
This is a show for kids. Our famous children's show.
Nanny trivia. It's very short and sweet this episode. I found out there are Fran Drescher Barbies that you can buy on eBay.
Yeah, I kind of Barbie did a lot of that in the 90s, where they would do themed characters, but official Barbie brand characters. It's crazy that Fran Fine is one that they went for, and
it's a talking Barbie.
It doesn't go "Oh, Mr. Sheffield."
Yes, I think it does. I'm thinking I might try to get one. I'm thinking about it.
Please get one of those.
I think I might have to.
Isn't it funny that we started doing a podcast about a show that we were both yeah, that was a fun romp, and now we're going to end up owning memorabilia?
Yeah, no. And it's funny too, because someone was asking me about the podcast yesterday, and they had some very surface level question, and I realized that my answer was going to be so in-depth and specific. And I haven't even fully realized how much information about the show I have gradually accrued over a year to make I am now inaccessible if I talk to a normal person about
it. Because I remember when we first started this, a friend of mine was like, "Are you even I didn't know you were a huge fan of The Nanny." And I was like, I watched it when I was a kid, we just thought it would be fun. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, yeah, well, that's actually season 4, episode 26 when that happens. Their first kiss is in episode 12 of season 1, but technically it's not really.
Or we'll be there was just a whole lot of tension with the network that we could get into, but
yeah, exactly. Well, Peter told us.
But hey, I wouldn't have it any other way. Because honestly, if we weren't this jazzed about it, this would be hell. So.
No, I mean, honestly, knowing you and I, if we weren't this jazzed about it, we would have stopped after like 2 of these.
Yeah, I think we both very quickly called it and been like, it's not worth it. Let's just not do it this week.
No, but it's fun. The show stays entertaining. It really does.
Yep.
I enjoy it.
And finally, the Fran or the CC. I said we've both established from previous episodes that we'd both get conned. So I think another Fran.
Oh God! If this was like a gender reverse situation, it would have happened This could have happened to me 10,000 times. Like now that I'm in a very long term, heading towards marriage relationship, I can reveal that if you had previously dated me and wanted to rip me off, it would have been very easy to do so. I would have just been like, yeah, sure, whatever you need.
But good news, ladies.
Account number, sure. I mean, you're probably not going to remember it, so I'll just write it down for you.
Well, good news, ladies. There's 100 million more Seans where that came from out there. You just got to know how to spot them.
Yep.
I'm overly trusting, so 100%.
Yeah. All right, so we're both the Fran. That's fine.
I will say that, but hey, maybe this is where we're different. I'm avoidant, so I would probably get very scared if someone said they wanted to be with me that much.
If someone was like, I love you, you would be like, no.
I'd be like, that's just, you're projecting. You don't even know me. And they'd be like, but we've known each other for 7 years. And I'd be like, yeah,
exactly.
But I mean, what is love?
Exactly. And what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. If you like this show, then you should let us know by having a go at writing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify a little review and let us know. And
you definitely lost your train of thought mid.
Listen, and if you want to talk about your thoughts on upcoming episodes or this episode or anything really, find us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Mr. Chef Pod. Chef is spelled with 2 F's. And yeah.
Yep. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.
The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.